We are on the lunch break of the questioning of Janet Williams at the undercover policing inquiry. Janet Williams was head of special branch between November 2003 and December 2005. She has been, I think it's fair to say, quite chatty. There have been a number of breaches where she has talked about something that she really shouldn't have, and we won't be able to tell you what they are, which is quite frustrating. Notably, fairly early on, she admitted that the role of the SDS was the disruption of groups. This is something which we have not heard any of the managers admit to before. I think it's very significant. Irritatingly, that part of her evidence was clipped by the breach process, which is still incredibly frustrating that despite the fact that the things that she said that were restricted were only a matter of minutes. We lost about half an hour of the broadcast this morning. That means there's lots of things we can talk about which were not broadcast, but the video of it doesn't exist anymore, which is incredibly, well, it's ridiculous, quite frankly. She was taken through a lot of her authorizations of undercover officers. She talked a lot about all the other jobs that she did as head of special branch. I'm joined by Kate Wilson and Eleanor Bear. What do you make of it? What do you think of what she had to say?
Well, she does seem to be speaking more than maybe I expected.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think she's been talking a lot about her kind of role as with the difficult security situation that was there. And she obviously sort of prides herself that she's doing this job really well. But I was involved at the time with some of the organisations which were up on screen as being targeted, and she's not being questioned about. So these, it's saying like an organisation like Dissent is going to cause, sort of significant disorder and this sort of thing. Those words are just accepted, and she's not being questioned on that. And that, I was involved in that, and I was, as far as I'm concerned, I was exercising my sort of legitimate rights to protest in a democratic society. So I'd like to see her being questioned on how those groups were decided as being okay, because she ultimately is commander of special branch. That was down to her.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite telling that we've been shown a lot of the summaries of intelligence that the undercover officers were collating, and that that she claims that's all she read. She didn't read the actual report. She just read the summary of evidence. And it's pointed out that these are very low on fact, high on assertion, very bold language. But she disagrees. She considers them good summaries. And I mean, I think it's fair to say that anybody looking at them will go, well, there's not a lot of evidence there, really.
And I think what's not been put to her, today is problematic, because we have actually now got a witness who is answering the questions. It's actually been quite rare that she said she can't remember, and notably one of the times that she said she couldn't remember, she pointed out that although she couldn't remember now, it was 20 years ago, she had written it all down in a decision log at the time, and that's one of the documents that has disappeared. The Met Police have not provided those manager decision logs to the inquiry, and she said, if I had my decision log, I could give you a very detailed answer to that question. So interestingly, Sarah Simcox said, it doesn't matter if you don't remember anything, just say you can't remember. And it was like, no, actually, that level of detail about why you can't remember and what's missing here is very useful. Why would you cut her off and say she doesn't need to explain?
Yes.
We're not going to get it's going to be frustrating today, because this feels like a witness where we could actually get some answers, and there's not going to be time to put the questions. We started late because of a personal matter with Mitting, even finishing late. I think today should have started at 9:30 and finished at 6:30, or it should have been 2 days. She's clearly she is proud of the work that she did, and she appears to be a bit of a cut above some of the other managers that we've seen. And we know that women probably have to work 4 times as hard and be 10 times as good in order to get ahead in the police force. But
there's a conscientious approach that she appears to have.
Yes, but what's not being put to her, possibly because there isn't time and the inquiry knows this and she doesn't, but I think it would be interesting to hear her responses to this, is she's shown a authorization for HN118, Simon Welling, spying on dissent, and the G8, which is, as you say, high on assertion, low on fact. She's asked about it. She says no, she thinks it's all right. She would have asked more questions, and that's that. What she's not being told, what is not being put to her, is actually, we've heard from HN118, and he has said, yeah, it's all bollocks.
Right,
None
yes,
of that was
yeah,
true.
yeah.
I was basically just sitting at home on a computer. I barely infiltrated as dissent. Likewise, with some of the other authorizations that she was signing off on. We know a lot about those deployments now, possibly more than Janet Williams did when she was signing off on them, and they clearly weren't justified. They clearly shouldn't have been signed off on, and the detail of that is not being put to her. I suspect because there isn't time. So
I mean, with HN77, Jackie Anderson, I mean, even the application for the authorization, it kind of says that she's not getting much. There's not much here. Yet she still signs off on that. I mean, the whole approach, is.
Yes, and I mean, she clearly, and I mean, there was one instance where she's presented with an authorization that she signed, and it contains the phrase, there is no significant collateral intrusion in this deployment. She's then taken to an extra page of it a bit later on, which has a list of a summary of the intelligence reports filed, and top of the list is Emily Apple has her baby. And they said, does that not strike you as collateral intrusion? And she's like, well, yes, it does. And they were like, so how do you explain signing off on this? There is no significant collateral intrusion when the document itself contains evidence of significant collateral intrusion. And she just said, I missed it.
Yeah.
In quite a small voice.
Yes. Which doesn't make it any less true.
No. I think that there is a lot more of that level of detail that could be put to her. I mean, I am particularly frustrated by this witness because she signed off on the authorization that names me and Eleanor as named targets of Mark Kennedy's deployment. That's not going to be asked about. They've made very clear they're not going to ask about any of the MPOIU stuff today, which just goes to show why it's so important that the next phases of this inquiry go ahead, because there's huge gaps in what she's being asked about. And Janet Williams is one of a number of managers that we've heard from who really is going to have to be brought back because we're not getting the full picture.
Yeah, it was pointed out at the beginning that she's given 2 witness statements. It's only on the first one that should be questioned today, which, as you say, is assuming tranche 4 happens, and that's all just bureaucracy, I guess. But if it doesn't, that's very different. I mean, she did refer to the women who've been harmed by the deployment of undercover officers and that they need an apology.
I was quite annoyed by that.
She didn't provide an apology. She just said that they
need our apology. And I bridled at that. I was like, how dare you tell me what I need? I don't need your apology. I need your honesty in your answers.
Yes.
I mean, there was another moment where she was specifically asked about Carlos Savacki. She signed off on his authorizations. The authorization explicitly talks about the John Charles de Menezes killing and how he's providing intelligence about where that campaigning might go. But it was put to her, well, at this time he was cohabiting with Donna McClain. And there was a moment of confusion because it seems that Janet Williams considers it perfectly appropriate for an officer to cohabit with somebody. She then found out that he'd also been cohabiting as a couple. They'd been having a sexual and romantic relationship. And she was like, well, that's absolutely wrong. And Sarah Simcott went back and said, well, hold on a minute, because surely living with somebody in their home, regardless of whether you're having a sexual relationship, is an unacceptable level of collateral intrusion. And she kind of willfully misunderstood the question.
Very strongly.
She and said, well, I didn't know that he was having sex with her. And it's like, well, actually, that wasn't the question. It doesn't matter whether he's having sex with her. The point is that, you need a warrant to go into somebody's home as a police officer. yet as an undercover officer, you can live there.
I mean,
every single day, seeing everything, being a part of everything. I mean, and we both shared our home with an undercover officer, and it is a massively unacceptable collateral intrusion.
I mean, the definition of collateral intrusion, if it doesn't include being part of a household, then what on earth is it?
Yeah, and like for people to understand, obviously, the effect on of the undercover policing and the spy cops on women who had relationships with them has been absolutely awful. But actually, the impact for people who were just friends, even with people who didn't live with the officers, to discover that kind of betrayal of trust was absolutely huge and devastating for people. And at the time when we were living with Kennedy, we joked about him, potentially being a cop, but was sort of, we knew knew inside that actually that was completely wrong and against our human rights, and completely intrusive. So I really would like her to be for it to be gone back over this point, because for them just to think, oh, it's totally fine, this if this Dunham clean woman is just an activist, then she deserves to have a police officer living with her, is not okay.
Well, it was also the way that she said it.
Yes.
She said people who are friends, people who share interests also share premises. And it was like, yes, but you do realise they weren't friends. They didn't share interests. He was an undercover police officer spying on them and trying to undermine the things that they held most dear. And it seems like on this point of collateral intrusion, and it's something that's going to come up again and again, there is a complete disconnect in the police's heads. And I mean, the clearest examples that I've seen of that are authorizations for Mark Kennedy. Potential. Oh, it says no volume.
Oh, really? That's very irritating. Why would it say no volume?
It's just this one.
Oh
no. I do apologize. Can other people comment on if there's volume or not on this?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us? I haven't. I can't see any reason why there wouldn't be volume. Everything is working according to the thing. Yeah, I don't. I don't know what to say. There's one person saying no volume. I don't know whether everybody else is saying it's fine.
Everyone else is saying they can hear.
Yeah. Let's carry on. I mean, just on that, also, one of the things that she said was, well, if they were cohabiting as a couple and he was reporting on her, then that would be wrong.
Yes.
Which was like, well,
again, so there's a few really misconceived ideas. One of them is that it's okay for police officers to deceive random members of the public about their identity and their job and all of these things, and to have a relationship with them, which I think is a very, very twisted way of looking at relationships. And then the other is this idea, and as I was saying before the interruption, that I've seen authorizations for Mark Kennedy, possibly signed off by Janet Williams. She was signing off a lot of his authorizations around that time, that say the nature of this operation is such that anyone coming into contact with the UCO is, by definition, a valid target. So there is no collateral intrusion because, by definition, if they come into contact with this officer, then they are a valid target. And that includes my grandmother and my parents and my brother. There is the police's understanding of who is fair game. And I think that came across very strongly when Janet Williams was completely misunderstanding the question, because it just didn't even occur to her that there could be any question apart from the sexual relationships, which they've all had drummed into them. That was wrong. That shouldn't have happened. But actually those, profound relationships of trust that these officers were forming, and the intrusion into people's private and family lives, provided they, kept their dick in their pants, that was fine.
Yeah, no, it's very frustrating, and I think you're right. It is. She's been coached on a certain topic, and then she's revealing kind of what she really thinks in the process.
Yeah, and it's just she's been questioned a lot about the authorizations, and ultimately, as commander of Special Branch, like she's really responsible for these. But the authorizations themselves just seem to be a load of word salad of all the things that they need to say, like, oh, there's no significant collateral intrusion. Oh, that's okay then, because they've written that sentence in, and actually that's not okay. They should be, obviously I don't think the operation should be existing, but they should be listing all the collateral intrusion and saying, and actually going into it properly. But they're just writing the things in the authorization that they think should be in there under REPA.
Yeah, she says that they were. Oh, yes, but they were mitigating and minimising any sort of collateral intrusion. It's like there's no evidence of that. Why have you just come up with this?
Okay, no, but this is another really ill-conceived police idea, which is that collateral intrusion is mitigated by not writing it down. So there are moments in Mark Kennedy's contact logs where he attends a family funeral, and the contact logs say, Mark is attending a family funeral. In order to mitigate collateral intrusion, no reporting will follow. And then they just switch off the records, and then it's like, okay, he's finished attending this person's family funeral. Now we're gonna start taking notes of it. And it's like, actually, the intrusion, the reporting is a problem, and we've seen, horrific personal details and that misuse of private information in those reports, and the whole data protection issues around that are massive. But the police seem to think that it's okay to go to somebody's family funeral as an undercover cop, provided you're not taking notes. And yeah, I mean, I don't even need to explain that it's not.
Yeah, horrific, just absolutely horrific. We have had some comments. There's quite a lot.
A lot of them are about
Yeah.
here as well.
Yeah, so there's one here from Janet Tennant. Absolutely vital that the inquiry continues. Too many people have questions. It might not get the answers, but at least there needs to be time to ask and give evidence about the invasion of people's lives. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's absolutely insane that the inquiry, the Home Office is considering having this consultation and considering shutting down the inquiry. From Jack Shepherd, she doesn't really have a clue about what the SDS were doing, or she's deliberately misinterpreting the evidence. Yeah, I think that is.
I think she didn't have a clue. And the only clue that she got was what she was told by DCI Dell, for example, who we heard from, and I wouldn't trust that man to run a unit.
No.
So there's just a institutional problem here. There is a structural problem where the buck gets passed up and it gets passed down again, and nobody actually considers themselves responsible. HN 53 has said that he did not consider whether operations were proportionate, whether they were necessary, any of this stuff, because that was Janet Williams's job. And all he had to do was make sure that the applications were accurate.
And she's also said that that it wasn't her responsibility to check that the officers on a day-to-day basis were behaving in a way.
So
nobody was in charge.
Nobody was in charge. Everybody was getting paid, but nobody actually ultimately takes responsibility for this. That's what we've seen across the board with the managers. Nobody, except to some extent, yesterday's witness, David Vaness, who said we got it wrong with the REPA.
Yes.
And he said from a personal point of view, we should have done REPA better.
But I can't remember.
But that was it. He couldn't remember anything else. He was a totally useless witness. But he did at least say, on this point, the buck stops with me.
I mean, it's interesting in terms of strategy. I mean, because he took the strategy of like, I take responsibility, but I can't remember what I did. Whereas she goes, I remember what I did, but it wasn't my fault. And I think it's you kind of get one or the other with these witnesses, is that in some way they're going to get themselves off the hook in some manner.
I mean, I think it's also important to say that Mitting seems to like this witness
a lot. Very lot. I mean, I think she is of a particular social class, which he defers a lot of respect to. She is giving long form answers after several days of witnesses who haven't.
Yes.
we haven't had many. She's the only senior woman police officer who has appeared at the inquiry. I think, yeah, for a number of reasons, he is completely enamored with her. I don't know where that takes us.
I'm not.
No, yeah, quite same. So another comment. Someone needs to check the underground archive for those decisions.
So this is not just. There is a big issue around this. So EM59. He's a T4 manager. He was managing the SDS when Mark Kennedy and I first started our relationship. And he said to the police lawyers, and ultimately it came out in the IPT, I can't answer these questions. Where are my day books? You know, and we asked over and over again, where are his day books? And the police replied saying, we've got no idea. We don't even know what this word means. We've got no idea. And it's like, oh, for God's sake, use your imagination. Even I can imagine what he's talking about. And I am not involved in police procedural matters. These managerial decision logbooks appear to have been part of the culling of information. And I think that's very significant.
Yeah, and deliberate.
Yes. Because, and, you know, we've seen there is one document, key document in the decision logs around Mark Kennedy's deployment where the operation is being run by a woman who wants more information in the same way that we've seen with Janet Williams. She came in and she wanted more information. There is a recorded decision where a woman is going to be staying in Mark Kennedy's flat cover accommodation for a couple of weeks. And on that decision, she has handwritten, cover officer is verbally reminded health and safety, intimate relationships, which, as far as I can tell, basically is undercover officer is told either to keep it in his pants or to use a condom or, whatever. But there's more of that stuff. You know, as she said, everything that was going through her head was written down in these logbooks and notebooks at the time. And although she is quite confident that she did the right thing, because of all of the stuff that was going on and all of the culture there was around it, I'm sure that there were things written down at the time that she would be uncomfortable to find that she'd written down today. And you know, those managerial high-ranking decision logs are really, really key, and they've pretty much all gone.
Yeah, completely. We no sign of them. And I think it's ridiculous to suggest that, like, oh, they were accidentally lost or something. You know, this is a deliberate thing.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. And I guess it means, they're able to get away with all this kind of like, I don't know. I can't remember, and that we've got nothing really to press them with to prove them that of the bad decision making that they made.
There's some more comments. One here. Trans 3 Part 3 seems to be an exercise in passing the buck between the ranks and hoping the result is some sort of outcome of incompetence with some bad actors as opposed to a structural issue. Yeah, that does appear to be the approach.
It does appear to be the approach, but I think it's really important to stress that the buck passing itself is a structural issue.
Yes.
You know, the fact that the buck can go up and down and nobody's really clear who respond, you know, like in a situation like this, an inquiry chair investigating serious wrongdoing ought to be able to go and say, the buck stops with you.
Yes.
That's how it works. And that doesn't appear to be the structure that existed around this.
Yeah, absolutely, entirely. Janet Williams will be with us all afternoon. We don't know what time it's going to finish. It might run late. Is there anything else you'd like to add about this morning?
No, I think that's it, and it will run late.
It will run late, yeah, I'm sure. Thanks for joining us. We'll do more videos throughout the day, and we'll be reporting on it as it goes along. Bye.